Platter as a platform, scrutinizing food blogs by women from India. Language of food is the language of appetite. One among the basic requirements for human existence, food is to be worshipped and approached with reverence. With the furtherance of internet, preparing an Indian Matar Paneer or Mexican tacos is no more a laborious task. Myriads of food blogs are accessible in the online media with detailed recipes and illustrations. Traversing the boundaries of a hobby, women into food blogging perform a crucial role in creating a network of cybernauts for whom internet is a gateway to knowledge and learning process. Using the never-ending appetite for good food that people share universally, women food bloggers spearheads a culinary revolution that enables them to transcend the geographical demarcations and create a global circle that encompasses flavors and tastes, disregarding the power hierarchies. This paper attempts to read food blogs by Indian women who seek to connect with their homeland with the rest of the world by way of a simple recipe. The role of food blogs in democratization of food, women's empowerment, and dissemination of knowledge will also be addressed. Within the social fabric of India, which is highly regarded for its unity in diversity, hospitality has always been acknowledged. We exhibit a firm adherence to the implications of the Sanskrit verse Athithi Devo Bhava. As per the Vedas, giving food is more blessed than to receiving it, and the act of feeding a guest is equivalent to serving God. Colleen Taylor Sen remarks that the act of cooking food by using fire is considered equivalent to a sacrifice. Indian food culture is endowed with a heterogeneous and variegated identity. Needless to say, the staple food, the ingredients, the cooking, eating, and serving style exhibits considerable diversity on the basis of the ethnicity and cultural overtones of specific geographical terrains. The differences in regional tastes are so conspicuous that they show striking difference which keeps alive a gulf between different culinary cultures within the country. The Mughal influence along with the British, French and Portugal rule have also contributed to a varied food culture in India. Myriads of culinary styles within India validate the fact that the food culture differ profoundly from one locale to another. But at the same time, there existed a wide social gap between the Brahminical castes who abstained from non-vegetarian and the Dalits and other backward communities who ate meat. Many a time it is perceived that the eating habits and preferences are conditioned by the individual's occupation, age and social position. There was a time when widows had to follow a plain diet so as to stay serene and avoid any iniquitous inclination towards life and its pleasures. In the current scenario, prejudices and misconceptions corresponding to food and eating are becoming less thanks to the intermingling of multiple cultures, an implicit outcome of colonization, migration, etc. In an era taken over by the digital revolution, the cultural mechanism and its operation too is mediated by the new media. Social networking, blogging has influenced the transfer of culture throughout the globe. A portmanteau of the words web and log, blogs as virtual substitute for a diary or a private turned public space gained popularity in the late 1990s. The transformations brought in by the proliferation of the electronic gadgets and the internet led to new methods of knowledge production. Philip Howard, in his work Manual Castles, remarks that new communication technologies seemed to be extending our global consciousness, changing our creative processes, and generating new forms of knowledge. The electronic revolution decentralized, integrated, and accelerated social interaction and resulted in technological convergence. The history of cooking and serving in India is a highly gendered arena. The linkage of food with maternity, femininity establishes the heterosexual family with fathers as diners and mothers as unpaid domestic laborers. A legacy which the mother passes to her daughters, culinary knowledge was a prerequisite to conjugal life. On the other side of the spectrum, it is the generosity of the man to enter the domestic kitchen, which is not a prerequisite to married life, but a hobby or pastime. In the article Caring About Food, Doing Gender in the Foodie Kitchen, Kate Keynes observes that the dominant ideals of femininity and social reproduction emphasize the maternal practice of feeding children and socializing them into culinary competence. And research indicates that women's memories of their mothers often serve as a reference point for their own dinner practices. Women food bloggers subvert this gendered perspective of cooking when they shift the venue of the whole process to the public sphere, blogosphere, a suit-free, sweat-free, heat-free zone which facilitates a wider audience and recognition. In the space offered by food blogs, the creative genius is recognized, applauded, and promoted, unlike the private space in one's own kitchen. The liberty of blogging lies in the authority of the blogger to decide and shape the style and substance that appear on the blog. Another potential issue is the biased attitude towards the participation and involvement of women in the field of technology and the new media. Along with other patriarchal constructs, the label of technical incompetence too was forced upon the women folk. Exploring women's position in the blogosphere, it is observed that they outnumber men in the list of top-rated food bloggers and they rarely give up in between. In a survey conducted by Rediff.com to find out the top 30 food bloggers of 2013, 29 were found to be women. Another intriguing observation is the presence of blogs born out of collaboration. SpicyTasty.com, Cheenachatti.com are such blogs formed by a group of women with similar interests in cooking and blogging. It is interesting to note that these blogs are diverse and unique in their own ways, some exclusively meant for vegetarian recipes, some for baking experiments, and others representing a particular state or ethnicity. What binds all these bloggers is their passion for cooking and blogging, which is proven by the fact that most of these food bloggers have been active for about 5 to 10 years. According to the French philosopher Pierre Bourdieu, taste is often determined by the social position from which it stems. A turning back to the pre-digital era shows that food was region-specific, which crossed borders only with migration and invasion. But the exchange of culture that occurs as part of its existence in a public space, a blog, has a wider reach which make various food cultures mobile and overlapping. The monopolization of food culture, particular to certain community or caste, gets dismantled on its getting popularized and circulated on the web. The autobiographical narrative pattern followed in the food blogs encompasses the history, evolution, and timely changes of the recipes. When a Dalit blogger recollects her memories of having eaten a particular delicacy, it is poles apart from the description of the same dish by a caste Hindu. Due to the casteist nature of food, publishing cookbooks were exclusively meant for the affluent upper class, and the Dalit tastes were often left officially unrecorded. Blogging, with its transparency and user-friendly mechanism, helps connect with a global audience. Here, the caste dynamics and hierarchy is interrogated and challenged by the appearance of Brahmin and non-Brahmin dishes on the same blog. Consequently, the supremacy of aristocratic food culture is disrupted and food traverses the borders of class and caste. Uma Narayan, in her Dislocating Cultures, Identities, Traditions and Third World Feminism, observes the gradual changes from a caste-based food culture trapped in the labyrinth of food parochialism to a liberal welcoming of other food cultures. This democratization of food owes a great deal to food blogs. Food blogs also helps remove the fear of ethnic food culture of others, and Uma Narayan talks about the difficulties confronted by the Western eaters who wish to mitigate their food colonialism by acquiring deeper knowledge of the cultural context of the ethnic foods they eat. As part of this paper, the researcher interviewed 5 women food bloggers with a diasporic identity via telephone, and a majority of food bloggers responded to the call and was very warm and cordial enough to cooperate with the interview. Rajeshwari Anand, a blogger famous for her vegetarian delicacies through the blog Rags Kitchen, says that blogging sure keeps me active and brisk throughout the day and apparently keeps me young, enthusiastic. Some days I feel bored to enter kitchen, but blogging pushes me to try new dishes, thus making me interested towards cooking new dishes in my kitchen for my family. From the words of these women, what I could understand was that their response, it was replete with words like memory, nostalgia, home, family, mother, culture, tradition, ethnic food, etc. So, a yearning for homely food, an urge to connect with native place, ushers the connoisseur of good food into food blogging. It is a way of feeling at home and marking a place of one's own in the cyberspace. This further helps to mitigate the feeling of non-belongingness as experienced by the blogger in a foreign land. Here, the virtual world substitutes the real, sometimes more appealing than the original. The subjective ideas of the blogger, when encountered with the collective ideas of the followers, set a multicultural platform. Here, the private becomes public. With a basic understanding of the internet, the blogger is introduced to the virtual space where she can demonstrate her culinary knowledge without being deterred by the limitations of time and space. The gender bias and marginalization of women in the professional culinary field is one immediate reason for women's increasing presence in the blogosphere as food bloggers. The convenient and user-friendly pattern of the new media, in contrast to the strenuous procedures of publishing and editing a recipe book, draws these women to the digital media, which offers them a wider reach. Catherine O'Sullivan, in one of her articles, remarks that personal computers and internet access, the blogosphere or online community of bloggers actually constitutes a wider reaching and more diverse group than do previous generations of diaries. The monetary benefits gained through blogging in most cases provide women a sense of financial independence and security that comes to them by pursuing their passion. But for another group of bloggers, money-making side of blogging has never beguiled them. A food blogger from South India felt offended when asked about the profit part of food blogging. Her response goes like this: I think I may not be the right person to answer your queries. The reason I created the blog was to store all my recipes in one place, as well share it with others. I don't look at it as a medium of earning money. Sorry. So in such cases, food blogging serves the purpose of self-expression and knowledge sharing in the virtual world. From a gendered perspective, blogs render spatial freedom to women by acting as a room of one's own without any external interventions and restrictions. Elaine Showalter, in the work Women's Time, Women's Place, asserts that female space is the alternative linguistic and imaginative place from which women can speak. Thus, the blog turns out to be a virtual room for women to be creative and liberated subjects. Using the same material that kept her oppressed for centuries, that is the kitchen, women find a way to empowerment through food blogging. The sense of power experienced through blogging grants the blogger an authority and agency which she controls and manipulates with the help of simple language, culinary expertise, food photographic skills, etc. With this sharing of culinary bits in the blog, the blogger achieves an audience, providing a feeling of community, mutual sharing, and cultural exchange. The blogosphere is replete with extremely personal narratives of native dishes, spices, and memories. For the food bloggers with a diasporic stamp, food with its deep-running roots to home, family, and mother binds the individual to his native identity with a nostalgic undertone. Kirti, a connoisseur of good food and a budding food blogger from Kerala, now settled in California, remarks that I believe my blog helps me to connect not only with my home, native people, ethnic food, but also with all the foodies around the world. It eliminates the alienation experience and makes me feel as a part of a bigger global community. and it keeps me occupied all the time and helps me express myself and connect to the people. In this context, it may be pertinent to mention that the diasporic identity of the Indian blogger contributes to the bridging of the gaps between ethnic food and its cultural context. This keeps the foreigner informed and ready to attempt the ethnic food of the other with a good knowledge of its cultural context, which no ethnic restaurant or recipe book can explain. The role of food blogs in weakening the xenophobic tensions with regard to ethnic food is creditable. For women who spend their entire life in the domestic sphere, creativity remains closed within a few experiments in the kitchen. The birth of a blogger also witnesses the birth of a creative writer. The success of food blogging lies in keeping the recipes brisk, straightforward, and less complicated. The clear message that emerges from this is that food blogs and the entries within are nothing less than a literary creation that requires imagination and creative vigor. In such a way, recipes can be considered as a literature of resistance that women uses as a mechanism to fight back the age-long oppression and subordination suffered by women as cooks and waitresses in their own families without recognition and appreciation. The functioning of food blogs as carriers of multiple cultures can be related to the philosophical concept of the rhizome developed by Gilles Deleuze and Guattari in A Thousand Plateaus. The recipes appearing on the blogs are multiple and non-hierarchical. They get modified and transformed with every single attempt to reproduce the recipe in individual kitchen. With every entry in the food blog, the history, culture, ethnicity, and personal elements and even memories in relation to the particular dish moves forward, perforating the boundaries of caste, class, and race hierarchies. In the article entitled Elementary Agents, Food, Cultural Theory and Multiculturalism, Ben Highmore observes that the importance of food for thinking about the psychosocial subject is seen most vividly in relation to forms of disgust, abjection, and other forms of rejection. In these, it is the role of the subject to police the borders of the self, and it is the potential of food to upset and unpick the borders of that self. Crucially, disgust will be the major negative effect for intercultural exchanges involving food consumption, a xenophobic riposte to the invitation to share the food culture of others. Philip N. Howard, in his Castles and the Media, has explicated the ways in which the digital media keeps one's multiple identities active. From a feminist perspective, women had always been coerced into accepting multiple identities of oppression as obedient wives, fertile mothers, and objects of physical pleasure. The virtual identity as a blogger extends a constructive identity to women, a reinvention, thereby making them known around the globe. On a concluding note, food blogs serve a huge cultural responsibility beyond the notions of a hobby or profession. It would be an overstatement to claim that blogging empowers women from all stratas of the society. Food blogging involves not only a particular class of women who have access to the possibilities of the new media and technology. The idea of experimenting new recipes springs up only in a kitchen where there is oversupply of food grains. Still, the functioning of food blog as a platform that provides the women food blogger a power and existence in the virtual space cannot be neglected. Food blogging promotes subjectivity, creativity, and freedom of expression and opens up better possibilities in the culinary domain. The food blogger intentionally and sometimes fortuitously becomes an envoy of multiculturalism. Remembering the fact that we are what we eat, the food culture extends its hold to multifarious fields of human society and life. To this end, food blogs are sites of knowledge production and proliferation that spearheads social constructivism. Thank you.